Hey guys, welcome to Ascending Tech, where we dive into projects shaping the cryptocurrency space. So, I am the Ascending Man, Nate McGettit, and today we're going to be talking about the launch of what I believe is the lifeblood of the PulseChain network. So, Van, my good man right over here, has forked Rocket Pool to make it easier to allow for more validators onto the chain. Okay, now trust me, the more validators you have on the chain, the more decentralized it becomes. It's best thing for the chain, right? So stay tuned because we will be getting into it. But first, before we jump into this, make sure you pull out that magic pen of yours. You tap the like button, subscribble all over to my channel, and make sure you turn on that notification bell so that way you never miss an episode. And I mean, hey, if you find this valuable, don't forget to share this with your fellow crypto enthusiasts because it helps more than you know. With that being said, just a real quick introduction. Vendale with Project Pi. Who are you?
Hey, how you doing, guys? Nate, thank you so much for having us on stream. As you can see, I'm actually in a restaurant right now. Had some traffic. Was supposed to be at the Atlanta Blockchain Center, but wanted the stream to keep going, so we're at a restaurant stream. But again, for those who don't know me, my name is Van or Vandell, online known as Connector, the CEO of Project Pi, and Project Pi is a simplified node infrastructure and liquid staking protocol. Simple as that.
And then for the people who don't really know, what is a liquid staking protocol?
Yeah, that's a great question. So essentially what liquid staking protocol means is, again, it's two terms. With staking, native staking, you have your assets locked up and you can't touch them. But with liquid staking, you actually get a receipt or a derivative token to where even though you're staking your asset, you're actually still gaining yield. And the beautiful thing is the yield are actually coming from the validators or the computers that are running on our protocol. So people always ask, well, if you do, you're providing liquidity to a pool or something like that. Well, where's the yield coming from? We don't know. The beautiful thing is this is coming from on-chain. This is coming from the network activity. The validators are, validating transactions. And basically how the mechanism works is to be a validator on Pulse Chain, you need 32 million Pulse. On our protocol, it's only half, so 16 millions. But if you were an early stake on our protocol, you actually were rewarded our token, PPY, or our governance or utility token, as a reward or incentive. And once we went on mainnet, which we are mainnet now, you were able to claim your PPY, and now your pulse that you staked is now ST pulse. Once we were live, the validators that were online or getting rewards. So on how it works on our protocol is every 14 days the pulse rewards are distributed, and every 28 days the PPY rewards are distributed. So for liquid staking, there's see their APY about 5 to 7%, meaning when you have your ST pulse or your staked pulse, it's the your capital plus the fees that are generated on our protocol. It's the exchange rate. So they have an exchange rate. So as time matures and as time keeps going on, ST Pulse will actually have a premium to Pulse because it's Pulse plus the bloodline or the validators that are on our protocol.
I love that you said that bloodline because that's very true. It really truly is the bloodline of a decentralized network, which actually I do get a question on that one. So with a lower staking requirement, okay, as you just said here, 16 million versus the 32 million, could Pi staking lead to a more decentralized validator network entirely? Or is there a risk of like control of concentrating in a few hands?
That is a great question. Yeah, on our protocol, we're just making it easier and more accessible for people to be a validator. And if they don't have the enough pulse to be a validator, they can still participate and be rewarded. I would say, like we had stated earlier, it actually helps decentralize the network because if you are already a validator, all you would need to do is just exit out of your validator and then utilize our protocol. And by doing that, let's just say you are running 100 validators. Well, now on our protocol, since it's half the price or only 16 million, you can now run theoretically 200 validators now. And that other post you can liquid stake, or again, you're going to need our governance or collateral token. So you could use that for the PPY. And that's where the yield is actually getting so high. So I know currently right now, as a validator, you're getting about 10.4% on our protocol on the low end with 25% collateral, meaning for simple terms, because I know these are accurate numbers. If 32 million posts equals about 2,000 US dollars, half of that or 16 million posts is $1,000. You only need $1,000, which is half of that. But you also need PPY or our governance tokens as collateral. You need 25% minimum of the US dollar price of Pulse. So that means you would need an additional let's see here, $250 worth of PPY. Once by doing that, we are actually, as an incentive, we're rating node operators our token as well too. So they're getting their pulse like they normally do, but also getting PPY. Now, we can actually go up to 150% collateral, meaning you can do the same amount, the $1,000 worth of PPY plus an additional 50%. And why would someone do that? Unfortunately, I'm not by my computer. Nate could put it up if he wants to, but we actually have our own analytics website, data.projectpi.xyz, where you can see actually all the statistics. On the last tab, there's a calculator. You can see the sliding calculator. So if you're gaining 10% for Pulse, and depending on the US dollar amount on the PPY, on the low end, you're getting about 30 to 40% APY up to 97%. Why? Again, you're getting your 10% via your Pulse, but you're also getting PPY. We have some tokenomic stuff as well too, but I don't want to give too much information. But essentially how our protocol works is we're coupling validators at the 60 million pulse. Any amount of pulse you can stake, one pulse up to 100 million pulse. Once the pool of liquid staking is at the 16 million, these funds will go directly to the official PulseChain staking.sol contract where you need to be a validator. It'll take about 18 to 24 hours. Once you're up and running, you'll be a validator or a pi pool. And then the liquid stakers, so again, it will just be SC Pulse. The token amount doesn't go up, it's the exchange rate. You can redeem back to your Pulse, getting your APY, but again, you're no longer getting the fees. But you can still stay in SC Pulse. And then kind of like I was talking about with the tokenomics, our token is your ERC404, so it's actually hybrid. So we actually have a third mechanism to where every 100,000 PPY tokens, you can actually stake that NFT. And the redemption, when people are redeeming from ST Pulse to Pulse, some of those fees would be going to the node or the people who are staking PPY as well.
Dang, that is quite a bit right there. Okay, let's before we dive into or I should say dig into different aspects there, that because you pulled a lot of that right together, and that's absolutely fantastic, by the way, because there's a lot of different directions you can take this. So let's go ahead and start with a simple one. What is the PPY collateral?
Yeah, the PPY collateral is Project Pi yield, and this is the, I guess, if, the lifeline of our protocol. So with our token, PPY or Project Pi yield, the max supply is 314 million. For those math geeks out there, 3.14 pi. We started with Raspberry Pi, so that's where the number came from with that tokenomics. You can see this all on our documentation. We have all that tokenomics that we have. We have about 98 million that's going to be inflated over 4 years over time to validators. But the unique aspect of our token is it's the first liquid staking protocol in the world, and of course, the first on PulseChain to have the token be an ERC or a PRC 404 token. What is that? An ERC 404 is actually fractionalized NFT, so it's a hybrid of an ERC 20, a regular token, and an ERC 721, an NFT. What that does is, we kind of named it like liquid NFTs, meaning if you are into NFTs, you no longer have to sell the full amount or put it on a marketplace for someone to buy. You simply just sell the tokens, and the tokens, you get your whatever you need out of that, and then the NFT would just disappear. Once you get to that 100,000 threshold again, magically a NFT will appear in your wallet, and you can stake that.
So the idea of 404s have always been an interesting one, because as you said, one of the greatest issues with NFTs is that they're not very liquid.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas 404s tokenize the NFTs because tokens have a tendency to be very liquid. And so how do these 404s, and it's a PPY that was 404s. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yes, the PPY Project Pi yield, our governance, that is the ERC44 token that
Yeah.
you're used to be a validator in our protocol. We'll also stick the NFT, but some more stuff you can do, which we'll talk about that later in the stream.
Okay, so yeah, that's quite a bit there.
Really good.
So
Thank you.
with those with the 404s, then what I'm hearing then is what you're able to do is you're able to take these 404s as the NFT versions, then you're able to stake those out, correct? You're able to gain the yield of a different token.
Yes, the derivative token, the ST posted, the fees that are generated from the redemption.
Cool. And then those STPLS, am I correct about that?
Yes, that's
STPLS,
correct.
right?
Yep.
So from the STPLS. Now, my question is, with the STPLS, what are you able to do with those?
That is a great question. Yeah, you can use SCPLS just like you would normally use regular Pulse. You can let it sit in your wallet. You can deploy it into different liquidity pools and different dexes. You can farm it. I mean, just think of it just like regular Pulse, but a staked Pulse or a supercharged Pulse. It's just now what that represents. It's think of it. It's like it's like a wrap Pulse, but think of it. It's like your capital plus fees that are being generated in our protocol, which are coming from validators.
Wait a minute. So, is there going to be like different pools then? Because when you're saying like you're going to be able to like yield with it and all that, are you talking about say pools in like uh, PHUX, right? Maybe over on 9inch somewhere in there. You're going to have pools that you can actually. So as soon as you stake your NFTs, you pull out your STPLS, then you're able to then start moving them over for say money printers, right? And you're able to start yielding with the STPLS.
Exactly, yeah. And since we are live, people have already done that. People have made SD Pulse, PTGC. Like, yeah, we have SD Pulse PTGC. I think someone made a farm on either 9x or 2 Fucks. Again, once it's live, anyone could buy it or, stake their Pulse to get SD Pulse or buy SD Pulse OTC, literally start creating different pairs and start generating their own fees just for so it's like now okay, you're getting your 5 to 7% on our protocol, but on top of that you're getting fees generated from you creating your own LP. What does that mean? You're still liquid and you're gaining an APR APY equivalent to a solo validator while still being liquid.
It's literally a compounding effect because what you're doing is you're you're validating with Pulse, and then
Mhm.
you're getting for PPY, which is 404s, which is NFTs. And so then from there, what you're able to do is put that and stake those out, which is gaining more yield, and specifically in STPLS. And then from there, you can move those over into another pool and be yielding whatever it is from over there,
Exactly.
whichever pool that your protocol you're yielding in. And that is absolutely insane. And see, here's the thing too that's most interesting about that is that means that you're validating the chain, making it more decentralized, aka PulseChain is the most decentralized chain out there, literally, and this just proves it. And then from there, you literally have multiple angles of just a consistent money train. At this point, it's not even a money printer; it's like a money train of printers, right? That are just constantly spitting out some yield for you to go start bouncing around at other places.
Nate, no, you got it 100%. Our motto, infinite yield, infinite possibilities, infinite
Hell yeah.
solutions. We're not just saying that because again you understand that PulseChain is the most decentralized ecosystem, but again, if we are thinking about PulseChain, if we want adoption on our chain, we are multi-chain. So imagine a world where we're bringing solutions to them, but in order for them to actually come to do what they need to do, they need to use SC Pulse, they need to use PPY. So that's actually bringing more liquidity, not just to Project Pi, but the PulseChain as a whole.
I agree. And so, in how much do you believe that encouraging the staking as well as encouraging the validation and the staking of Pulse and the PPY, and then pulling
Hello.
out the ST Pulse, right?
Yeah,
How
this is
much
him.
do you believe this is going to be attracting and
No, no,
encouraging
no.
more
We're good.
developers and more
No, no.
people overall to be coming over to Pulse Chain?
I think it would attract a lot of people for multiple reasons. One of them, again, a lot of people are scared of, or not necessarily scared of, or either one, don't have the necessary funds to be a validator, or two, don't have the technical expertise. We make it
Mm,
so seamless right now to the point where, again, this is more alpha. We could talk about this later, where we create an AI agent. I'm not sure
mm.
if you know what that is, but we have an AI
Oh
agent
yeah.
to where you can legitimately talk to it. It can stake on your behalf, it can redeem on your behalf, and it can create your own validator on your behalf. So when you talk to it, it'll actually generate your own keys. We are all about you, not your keys, not your coins. We give you your keys. Your key store is generated, and then your deposit file, which these two files are generated for validators. Once those are done, you go to the next step, which you would normally do on the launchpad on our protocol. You would upload your deposit JSON file. Once you do that on our protocol, you would generate a node ID. Once you do that, you would then deposit your PPY tokens. There's your stake it, and then your Pulse tokens and your validator. That full step right there takes about 1 minute, no technical expertise. And on the low end, you're now gaining the yield. The second reason, by doing this, it actually makes it a bit more to where, okay, if I do, we're talking about the liquid staking side now, is if I just have, if I don't know, if I'm scared of DeFi or staking or whatever, you can come to us. You can stake your pulse. We give you back your pulse. Your pulse is not locked up. Yes, it's locked up on our protocol, but we give you your principal back that you can use to do what we're going to be using. But now this SD pulse that you're holding is,
Uh-oh.
sorry
Looks like
about
we
that.
lost him.
Someone tried
Lost
to,
you for a second there.
yeah. But this yield is actually being generated from the validator, so you know, okay, well, this where's this yield coming from? That single-sided, low slippage, and you're getting on that. And then on top of that, since we made fractionalized NFTs, if you're just a speculator, like, okay, I don't, we have people who's like, okay, well, I just hold the tokens. I don't want to stake or nothing. Okay, that's fine. You could
Mm,
be a speculator, have the PPY token, stake it, and then just gain fees from our protocol. So it's a win-win-win, a triple way to use multiple, make multiple, I guess, interest or passive income plays in our protocol. But then you can take that and bring it to what you were already doing already. Because again, SC Pulse is just like your Pulse. It's just a wrap Pulse that's your principal with the rewards that being coming from the validators.
exactly. Okay, so how about this question then? This is gonna be an interesting one, right?
We lost our
So,
veins
what are the most promising
last month,
DeFi integrations
about
for
December
ST
21st,
Pulse that you
22nd.
can think of? Would it be
Right
lending,
now, there
borrowing,
is about
liquidity provisions? What do you think is
$350,000
going
in
to
our
be the most
protocol.
promising one?
The most promising,
So in 1 month,
honestly, I would say all of the above. I think the most promising would just be dependent on what people are doing. Do they need more liquidity? Do they want to borrow against it? I mean, again, with our AI agent, it's going to just make it so simple. Like, okay, well, we have people we're trying to onboard. They're
Mm,
scared of connecting their wallet. They're scared of clicking these buttons. Like, okay, well, if I click this button, what does it do? We just have an AI agent that simply does that for you. It shows you what's happening in the background and it makes it less scary for people with a very well-known interface that most people are comfortable and used to, which is a chat GPT like interface, utilizing specifically called it like the DeFi AI era, to where now you're utilizing AI agent that's specifically built not just for validation, but DeFi as a whole on Project Pi. Again, if we go multi-chain, we can bring this to where like now you can use any ERC20 token on any chain and then to come back to PulseChain as a whole, our ecosystem.
So, AI agent. Now, that's an interesting one that I don't think we talked about that last time. So, is this newer?
Yeah, this is new. Yeah, this is something that we were just trying to think like, okay, how are we going to make our protocol innovative but seamless for people? Anyone can do what
Mm,
we're doing, but we just want to be innovators, right? We're just taking things that already exist and then combining it together and just giving it to our users because, like you said, which one is more important? Well,
yeah.
some of them have more complexity than others, but if you can just simply talk to the agent and it does it on your behalf, and you can literally, talk to it, be like, how much do I have stake? What's my yield today? What could my yield be for 7 days? Because since it's an AI agent, it is training off our own data, so it can give you projections of like, or even automate the process. Hey, notify me when I hit 20% and unstake and do all types of stuff. So I think really the innovation, to answer your question, is just that AI agent is definitely going to be a game changer, especially when it comes to our protocol.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because my next question here is literally, how does Project Pi's model compare to Ethereum's transition to the POS, proof of stake model, and Lido's influence on ETH staking
because on our
centralization?
protocol right now in 30
So how
days,
does it
it's
compare? Well, I
generating
think the
about
AI agent
5%
definitely has a
APY,
has a
which is
piece of
pretty
it
good.
inside of there.
Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. I would say just making it short, sweet, and simple with the AI agent, being multi-chain, and letting even certain chains where liquid staking is not possible, but because we can do a bridging and just do a either create some type of liquidity pool, or on the back end is going to SC Pulse or PPY, and then when they deem it goes back to their native token plus the rewards. I think that'll be huge.
Yeah. See, now what's really interesting then is the
Yeah, and then I created I can try it out too.
at that point in
Created an
time, because I
anti-chain
know that Lido has a very important with
created an
I
agent
believe it
that
was the Aave
basically all
coin.
you have to do
Is
is connect to
extremely vitally
and
important. Oh, no, it's
once it
STE.
connects
My
to
bad.
your wallet, it would
STE
do the task
is
for
one of the
you.
most vital
So
tokens that
instead
are
of
actually
you
on
like
Ethereum.
trying
Do you
to
believe
connect
that
to our
ST
protocol
Pulse is
and
going to become the same
stuff,
sort of deal?
you
One of
simply
the
just
more
say,
important
hey, I'm going
tokens
to
on all of
deposit
blockchain?
this amount
I would say so, yes. Again, people who are in PulseChain, we always say it's like getting back at Ethereum at 2 cents. I think since we bought a beautiful, like we we went, in my opinion, above and beyond where we're going to real life events, talking to people, see like what are the like what do we actually want or what do we need on PulseChain? Even though yes, we're building a DeFi protocol to make anyone be able to make passive income, even if they don't have enough to be a validator, the technical expertise. Chris and I were also going to universities teaching, the young
Mm,
adults about blockchain technology, but infrastructure and why our company. And because of that, we onboard them to PulseChain. And I feel like there's a lot that we need, but again, this is the most decentralized chain because I feel like the community is also what's running the chain. We, the builders, we the influencers, we just talking about it, building on it. I think it's a no brainer. I feel like over time, because we're here for a long time, 5, 10 years from now, we could be up there with Lido. I don't see why not.
yeah, I would agree with that eventually here. Now, I wonder how long that would take, but at the same time, yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I mean, Pulse Chain has definitely got a special place. It's just way too much gatekeeping, unfortunately, currently happening. But we will definitely have our time in the sun. I believe this cycle is definitely going to be the cycle where Pulse Chain proves itself to the rest of the
on our
crypto
protocol,
world,
everything is
and from
basically
there,
a little
then
bit
we can
more
start taking
automated.
off.
So it's like
And so,
now I
oh
don't
yeah,
have to
please
work
go ahead.
nearly as
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, and really, it's not even about competition. Like, we're not trying to overtake anyone. Like, we're willing to work with anyone. Like, I think there's enough of the pie for everyone. There's no need to cannibalize. I think we can all work together in harmony, just build together, and stop arguing because again, we have like the most decentralized chain. Like, I've been in ETH communities, I've been in Solana communities, I've been in these different chains. Like, they're they're not community driven. It's just more like, like a lot of VCs kind of controlling things. It's more corporate,
Yeah.
which is nothing wrong with that. But I feel like with this chain, infinite solutions, man.
So I definitely the point that you made about how safe that ST Pulse basically makes validating. I really want you to try and repeat how important this is, right? Because the introduction of liquid staking derivatives make it easier for users to stake without worrying about losing access to their capital, which I think is vitally important. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, you really hit it on a point. I mean, it really comes down to the tokenomics of the protocol, right? I mean, we've seen what Lighthouse done, we've seen what Rocket Pool has done, we've seen what Jito's done, we've seen what all the other liquid staking protocols is doing, and we took that into account and we took, okay, how is the Pulsion community? Should we bring on super big, large infrastructure companies on board? Maybe. Definitely not right now. We're still growing, but I feel like once the gatekeeping stops, it's going to be a game changer. And like I said, the
Mm,
ST Pulse will be the bridge, the lifeline to bringing and interconnecting different chains onto our protocol to be a validator or just liquid stake.
absolutely. Okay.
in 1 month.
So how about this one then? So with over $65 million in Pulse currently locked in the validators, how does Project Pi help free up liquidity while still securing the network?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just said it, right? So if it's about 65 million locked up, right? So that's about equivalent to about, I haven't checked in a minute, but 45,000 validators. Okay. If we're talking about decentralization, for every one validator, they can now make two in our protocol. So that would double the supply, incentivizing people, hey, let's do more decentralization, let's do more nodes. And by doing that,
Mm,
they can take, instead of just having that other 16 million on the other half, they can either do two validators or liquid stick the other half. So we're like, now they're still liquid and they can do other stuff. We'll still having the same amount that they had before, but doubling it and getting more reward. So I think it's a win-win-win. And again, we're not trying to take over. We're not trying to be like a centralized, uh, protocol. We're just wanting to make it accessible and easy for anyone to, be a validator. If not, be a liquid staker. If not, be a speculator.
I'll tell you what, it certainly it sounds and kind of feels a lot like magic, right? And of course, there's a lot of math and technology involved in this. But I mean, when you're able to basically stake your pulse and then just magically have double that and go use that doubling of it, or copies almost, you could say, right? It does really seem interesting. So what are the economic effects of liquid staking on PulseChain then? Does it reduce the sell pressure, since stakers can use their STPLS in DeFi protocols instead of just straight up selling the pulse?
Yeah, I would say the inflation. My co-founder over here is actually just looking at me saying something. Maybe we should do a cameo because I feel like he would actually be able to answer this question a lot better. So I'm gonna bring Chris on. All
I'm
right,
all good, man. Let's do it.
hey, CTO. I'll actually give him a little introduction. But hold on.
This is
Hello.
non Vandale.
Can you see me? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
what's up?
we're both eating, but I'm the CTO of Project Pi. And so I am the basically the brains of the smart contracts and everything really. Um, at least with the logic. So like what I heard you just say is yes. I think that as far as sell pressure, it should alleviate it because um, our token actually has some burn mechanics. The liquid staking token has burn mechanics in it. So basically, what we do is, and I know Van had talked about it just a little bit, is the NFT stakers basically are earning a little bit of the fees that are like we basically take um, right now about 1.25% as far as redemption fees. Oh, I'm still waiting. Thank you though. But we take about a 1.25% redemption fee. Now that number is adjustable via the protocol DAO. So we'll have we have our community that they would be able to eventually adjust that value. I set it to where the max is at 1.5%. That's the highest it could ever go. We don't want it to be too high because we're not trying to I don't know how crazy I can go on the stream, but we're not trying to blow people backs out. So, we we're basically making it to where, of course, we want the system to be fair, right? So then from there, a portion of those fees are taken and given to the NFT stakers. So if you have 100,000 PPY and you're staking the NFT, you get a little bit of the fees that are generated from the redemptions. The reason being is we kind of like when we were on testnet, mind you, we've been on testnet for like 10 months. We had to consider looking at other like liquid staking protocols from other
Mhm.
chains. One of the big ones is Lido. That's the largest one, right? They make about, or they generate about $60 million a month in fees alone. So we thought of this idea. We were just like, what if we were able to give back a little bit to the community and to the people that actually want to have the PPY token and stake the NFT? So that's kind of when we thought of like the NFT 404 or the ERC 404. And then that's when we started just thinking like, well, I think fee generation or like sharing back a little bit would be very beneficial for the people that are actually utilizing the protocol. So that's just one aspect. But also the token, the ST Post token, has a little bit of a deflationary metric to it. Of course, when you're minting ST Pulse token, like when you're depositing Pulse and you're receiving ST Pulse, you're getting, of course, the ST Pulse token. But when you're redeeming it, a small sliver of the ST Pulse would actually be minted into the Burn wallet. So that means legitimately that the token would be burned just a little bit. Reason being is of course we don't we know that the token in itself would be minted and from pulse to st pulse, but I figured, well, what if we were able to give back to the pulse chain community by burning a little bit of st pulse? And mind you, because st pulse is pulse plus the rewards that's generated from the validators, that means that more pulse is being burned away as time progressed because of people redeeming. So that means that the supply of pulse chain should decrease the more our platform is used. And I think that in a way for us is it's a way for us to say that we want to not only give back to our community, but we want to give back to the chain as a whole. We started multi-chain. We came into pulse chain trying to build something that would be beneficial, and I think that this would be something that would definitely help to benefit pulse chain long term. I don't see it being to where it's like billions of pulse being burned within a month or a year, but I do believe that over time this could definitely help the chain's entire ecosystem, and we're here for it.
Longer view, longer view. So correct me if I'm wrong though. The way that I heard that is like if I go and I put pulse in, right, and then I mint out the ST pulse.
Mhm.
When I mint that out, there's actually a fee for minting it out, and so therefore that fee that you take is going to go into the burn wallet. Am I correct about that?
That that's only when you redeem. So that's only if you were to come back and you wanted to redeem your ST Pulse back into Pulse. That's when that happens.
Okay. Okay. And so if I go and I redeem, put the ST pulse back in, and now I want to pull out my actual pulse. So you've taken a sliver of that off that I've redeemed back and then put that into the burn wallet. But doesn't that also mean that I technically haven't put enough in to be able to get all of my pulse out? So therefore there's a little bit of pulse that's always going to be stuck in there? Or does that also get sent off to a burn wallet?
No, 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 no. That gets all sent out. Like how it all functions is everything that you would want to redeem. Like if you wanted to redeem the max amount of ST Pulse,
Hmm.
the smart contract, how I had set it up is to where it would consider everything that you wanted to redeem first, and then it does the calculation to see how much pulse that you as a user will receive first. And then after that, that's when it'll take basically the remaining amount of ST pulse and then just divvy it out to either the burn wallet or to the NFT stakers. And then also us too. We take just being full transparent. We take a
Yeah.
little bit as well, and that's only because what we want to do too is we want to, both of Van and I, we came really like within recently the last 3 or 4 years, we came from the same college, Georgia State. So we're really really big on universities and just building with these college students. So we want to eventually take some of these funds eventually and go to colleges to teach about blockchain and pulse chain specifically, which we've done already.
Mm.
But we want to eventually set up these like either grant programs or scholarship programs. People can build on pulse chain, and I think some of those fees can be allocated to that. That's all. We always wanted to do different like scholarships and stuff like that. But getting back to what you mentioned, yeah, it considers everything first. So it would consider everything, and then after that, it divvies out the remaining amount for ST Pulse, as far as the fees goes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And then you also you mentioned the DAOs, right? So what mechanisms are in place to prevent a large whale or multiple large whales, or any kind of like central entity, or even a project or a protocol, kind of like two fucks, right? From controlling a majority of the pie pools.
That's a very great question. So, and we've been thinking about this, the NFT, like when we first thought about this, we were thinking like the NFT stakers, or sorry, not NFT stakers, but like the individuals that have the NFT. So you need 100,000 PPY to get one. We were thinking that anyone that have one would be able to vote. We're still kind of discussing if it would be better to make it to where even if you have a portion or a fractional amount of it to be in, like to actually be able to cast a vote. Because yes, you're correct. And I think that was from the last stream that you had with Van that yes, in
Mhm.
theory, who's to say someone couldn't buy a large amount of PPY and then try to, sway the vote any type of way.
Yeah.
So it's something that we've been thinking about as far as even if maybe you had like a fractional amount, then you still have a say in how the protocol goes. Um, the protocol, like the protocol down or whatnot, that in itself, again, is still thinking about it. I mean, we've just launched a month out, so it's still fresh, fairly. So yeah, we're thinking about just so many different ways because again, I mean, you brought up a great point. It could be one massive whale comes in and buys so much PPY. Yes, that looks good for us because of course we finish out our rounds or we have all this money, but we have to consider the future of not just the one of the few liquid staking protocols on Pulse Chain, but how would this affect Pulse Chain as a whole? Because now you're dealing with validation, which is essentially the lifeline of Pulse Chain. You know.
Exactly, exactly. See, that's usually the problem you end up running into when it comes to any kind of like DAO, right? It's always like it's the whale game, right? Where they pick up a whole lot of the coin and it's basically their choice. Um, and then there's also communities, kind of like Two Fox. They do a good job with it, where it's like a group of people now, kind of centering in on one spot and trying to make all the decisions. And
Mhm.
it does kind of, truthfully, it does kind of take away from governance in general. So with that, how can you possibly ensure the decentralization for the decision making within the protocol here?
That's a good question. I think that one of the things is, and you even said it yourself, one of
Mhm.
the difficult things about it is like knowing that because it's so decentralized, anyone can buy, and this is coming from like you know, liquid staking is in its entirety is very big. And so you not only have like the validation part, you have the liquid staking part, and you have now the collateral PPY aspect. It's thinking about the just all three of those things combined, just knowing that the individuals that are able to cast a vote on a specific setting that they would like to change, that could, most of the time people that want to change a setting, they want to make sure it benefits them too.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that is going to be difficult is maintaining that balance of how we would be able to manage between somebody that, like you mentioned, buying a lot of PPY to try to cast a vote of something that, let's say someone wants to change the minimum requirement to validate from the 16 million down to 4. Well, if we feel as a company that we're not really mature enough for that, then that could be a bad problem. So it's like it is stuff like that Van and I, we definitely like keep that in mind as far as like the actual governance side of things. And that actually is one of the last pieces. Even though we're a mainnet, we still are, that's kind of funny enough. That's why we're here sitting down, is we're talking back and forth as far as okay for them. Oh, you're okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. No, 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 no. You're fine. I was confused because they asked me like, oh, as someone knows.
Food better be good.
Right. No, you're. I'm still fin or eating. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Um. No, 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 no. Yeah. I'm sorry. We're in a restaurant. We were just like, man, we're hungry as hell, but we know we have this stream.
And
But
that traffic was so bad too. It would
yeah,
like, yeah,
that
Van
too.
showed me a picture of the traffic. Yes, I was like, oh, you poor guys. Uh,
Yeah, so around like the weekdays, the traffic between around like 5 to about 8 is really when it gets bad around Atlanta. So yeah, we apologize for anyone that's viewing, but
hey, we do it live.
no, yeah, and that's the thing. The Project Pi team. Again, we're Van and I. He's the CEO. I'm the CTO. But Van and I, we love to go back and forth. Even with us on Mainnet, we'll go back and forth and talk and discuss about like how we see and how we vision Project Pi as a whole. Because we have to consider Pulse Chain as the first chain that we actually built this protocol on. We have to make sure that what we do, we're not only like benefit our community, but it'll also make sure that as a whole, it will help boost the entire chain, and
Mm,
that's our goal. Because we started multi-chain. I know Van gave you the spill. We started multi-chain, but we had to condense down to one chain because we're fully bootstrapped. We came in post sack. We
mm,
only, being full transparent, we're still in our race. Our goal is about 1 million. We hit about 350,000 so far, but I would say it's a little difficult now, just knowing that like compared to when Pulse Chain like was very like just starting off, because I know everyone was still doing their the sacrifice, and so we're a post sac based company on Pulse Chain building, and so we really have to consider a lot of different things that will not only benefit the community and help Pulse Chain as a blockchain as a whole, but also realistically got to make sure that we are able to make all this stuff happen with the funds that we actually already have in our
Yeah.
pockets too.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that is something that some people can get kind of sour feelings over for weird reasons. Because, truthfully speaking, you guys are taking time out of your life, quite frankly, your life energy to build this up, and you're working hard. I know you guys are working really hard, and you're creating something that is going to benefit everyone who is currently on Pulse Chain. Like I said, it's the lifeblood, right?
Mhm.
And so when you're like, hey, we're going to take like a 1% fee for ourselves to pay ourselves, people seem to get real sour over that.
Yeah.
I don't think that is being sour at all. If you look at any company that you ever get a service from or anything, if you were to look at those same types of fees, they're taking like a 10%, 15, maybe even 20% fee for
Yeah. So
themselves,
are the
for the
liquid
profit of
staking
the company.
protocols?
So Van makes a great point. A lot of other liquid staking protocols take between, I feel like on average, about 5 to 10. I know
Mhm.
Coinbase, I think Coinbase takes about 25%. Really? 25?
All of them on average is 10%.
That
Coinbase is
is
25%.
that is insane actually. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. So yeah, and I see why, but the big thing about Van and I is just knowing that again, even though we started building on Pulse Chain, we are trying to think of how we can actually be able to build this chain up. And I think that one of the ways would be to really just kind of think about how all this stuff is going to play out. Because again, it's a large protocol. Realistically, thinking about it, I'm like, man, I think about it every day. I'm like, how the hell did two people build this out? But it's just showing like Van and I, we've been just determined. I mean, our company put things in perspective. Our company was created right around the time a lot of people actually were raising from the sacrifice for Pulse Chain.
Mm.
We started our company technically February 20th of 2023. So around that time, a lot of people were just now like starting on Pulse Chain to really start building out with the funds that they received. And it's like, yeah, we're one of the new quote unquote new guys around, new boys in town.
Newly launched. Yeah.
But I would say I think that you know we're here to make noise, but at the same time we also are here to show that while we can make noise, we also want to contribute to the chain that we first built on. And we want to make sure, like we've seen just from research and all the things that we've seen, it's like we have to figure out ways to make Pulse Chain a name brand. I think of
Yeah.
it as like, I came from, and I know people have asked me before Pulse Chain, I came from XRP. I came from XDC or Zenfin. I've came from obviously Ethereum and like just all these other different AVAX. Like I came from all these
Mm.
other different chains where they're becoming more of like a staple, like Polygon. You hear those chains and it's like, man, you think of Polygon, you think of like Starbucks, you think of like all these like retail brands that people want to go to, or the new boys, Sui, Say, and I want Pulse Chain to be up there. I want people to think like, wow, when you think of Pulse Chain, it's like, wow, this can be uh the brand as far as like the true DeFi decentralization brand, but it's on a very serious level. And I truly believe that it can be up there.
You know what? I think so too as well. One of the, like I said, again, where I'm probably going to be repeating this over and over and over. This protocol is ultimately the lifeblood of Pulse Chain, right? And so Pi staking encourages more developers to be built or to be building on the DeFi protocols, aka Pulse Chain, right? By providing deeper liquidity through your ST Pulse. So, just in your opinion, how effective do you think this attraction to new developers, perhaps even on different chains, wanting to come over to PulseChain, how effective do you think you're truly going to be?
Oh, okay. So I don't know how much you wanted me to like. Okay, sure. So, we again, I think that one of the things about Van and I, what we've done is again, we started multi-chain, and I have plenty of connections as far as outside the chain, because before Chain, I worked for a company that was very similar to Chainlink, but it was on the XDC or Zenfin blockchain. A lot of those guys derive from XRP. And I know people have like this thing about XRP, but I do believe that, um, in my opinion, just from building on these different chains, it won't. I have this ethos of where 10, maybe not even 10 years, I feel like 5, 10 years, 20 years from now, it's not going to matter to change. I think that eventually people are going to want to go to different blockchains, and they're not even going to know which chain they're going to be truly using, as long as they're able to earn yield, or as long as it's able to benefit them. So who's to say that we wouldn't have some kind of mechanism where we can actually be interoperable with ST Pulse going into a SUI or into an XRP or something.
Yeah,
And, and
yeah.
and that's where we're going. That's our goal. One of our goals is we want to make it to where it doesn't matter the chain. You want to still be able to interact with Pulse Chain, that's fine and dandy. We have that via ST Pulse. But if you want to bridge over to another like blockchain in, let's say, 3 to 5 seconds, then that would be possible. And yet, at the end of it all, you won't know the true inner mechanics unless you're like super tech geeks like Van and I. but but I think of it, and Van says a great analogy. You don't know, like, I mean, most people, unless they're plumbers, they don't know how hot and cold water comes to them. They just know that hot and cold water comes to them, right? It's
That's
like
a
they
very good
don't.
analogy.
So it's like I feel like that's the way that things are going to move, and I really believe that Pulse Chain can actually be one of those blockchains that can have some inner workings that could be intertwined with some of these behemoth blockchains that we know of. I mean, Chain in itself is a behemoth because the
Mm.
amount of capital that actually like the inflows, I mean, it's not even like 2 years old and it's already in the multi-billion-dollar like market cap valuation. So that in itself is very powerful.
Yeah, not too long ago, actually, we were, as far as the volume goes on the daily, we were in the top 5 of all the chains.
Yeah.
And I find it very fascinating that we're constantly over here in Pulse Chain being kind of forgotten about when we're still like top 5 most volume. And then you got people talking about Say who are sitting there like, or even Cardano, which are sitting like millions and millions of volume underneath us. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, I want to go ahead and shout out Agent J, my fellow degenerate over here. He says people get sour when when you are capitalism. That is true. People really truly do get sour over that. Um,
Yeah.
I I absolutely do believe that, you deserve, by building such an important piece on Pulse Chain, you do deserve at least a little cut of the pie. And the fact that you're only going with 1% means that we can absolutely, when you sit there, you and Van sit there and say, hey, we're trying to help the community at large, and you're only taking 1% versus the other ones that take 5 minimum. I mean, that's a 5x over at the minimum what you guys are willing to take. We're able to trust you at that point. Trust you and say, hey, you're not going to go overboard. You're not going to
Yeah,
become
how
extremely
I how I,
greedy.
again how I set it up in the smart contract is the max is 1.5, and that's adjustable via the protocol DAO. So if you want to vote, I mean, whoever wants to vote for it, I feel like it would be the NFT stakers because they get a little bit more of it. But besides that, it's like that's the highest it can go. Van and I, even though I know money is important, at the end of it all, we're not greedy people. We have been building and just really been focused on trying to figure out how we can build, make us put a stamp on what we've done, but just make a name for ourselves. And I think that by setting these lower fees, you know, a fee is always going to be appropriate. I think every liquid staking protocol might have a little bit of a fee,
Mm,
but not something as high as like, on an extreme of, let's say, Coinbase of 25%. That's egregious. Like that's really nuts. I didn't even know that. Um, but I do believe that long term, as far as the vision,
Yes.
the more inflows into, let's say, Project Pi and SD Pulse, and when things really start going, you start to see that Pulse in itself would start getting burned as well. I just checked today and on GoPulse.com that the amount of the amount of pulse that's been burned so far in 1 month is about one. I think no two. Can you check for me? I think it's about 2.1 million pulse, which isn't like a lot. That's like $110. But in 1 month, I mean, we just started, and I think that could literally, I could see that going into the billions, multi billions, and that in itself, I'm cool with that because, I mean, there is a lot of pulse, and it would be helpful to make the asset even more deflationary.
Mhm. Yeah, and the nice thing about that too is that technically pumps your bags too. And here's something that I want people to think about just to kind of close out on the idea of being a little bit sour because you guys are going to take your own cut of your company and your project, right? Let's go ahead and close this out. The fact is, guys, the project that they're building currently right now is going to allow for more builders on different chains to bridge over here, which then is going to cause a lot more money and a lot more users and people to then bridge over here as well to use those protocols. Okay, which is going to get our name out there more. And if our name is out there more, then what happens from there is the price overall of your bags goes straight up. So I wouldn't be too worried about a 1% fee when instead you're bringing over hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and perhaps even hundreds of millions of dollars just because this one protocol is doing the right thing. The lifeblood, guys, the lifeblood.
Yeah, that's the goal. It's of course, Van has a little bit more history as far as like Hex and Richard Hart. I knew about it a little bit back in 2020, but I didn't jump in. Van did. But now that I'm fully like immersed into Pulse Chain, and it's a beautiful chain, like,
Yeah,
and not just for
I
me
agree.
just building on it. Again, I came from other chains. The cool thing about it is, again, it's community based with a very low fee, as well as the speed is very competitive. So it's
Mhm.
like, why can't we have a chain that can actually be able to compete with the big dogs that people know of? And I truly believe we have something that can do it.
Absolutely, I agree. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and move over here. So, um, as far as like lending markets and all that, could the presence of the STPLS in the lending markets lead to greater pulse demand overall and/or price stability?
That's a good question. And being truly transparent, I'm not like the biggest into lending, but if I can just give just my first thought about it is, I do think that it could help with stability. I think that lending in itself, I mean, the lending and borrowing, I think that you have something that is not only pulse, but it's also gaining yield every day. So I think that it could help for sure. I mean, with I, ST Pulse, or as far as liquid staking, I think this is going to be, you know, one of the ways that people are going to actually be able to capitalize in lending and borrowing.
Okay, so does the introduction of ST Pulse then create a leverage risk similar to how ST ETH depegged during high volatility?
Ooh, now that is a good question. Yeah, I mean, yes, there's always a possibility. I mean, the deep, like as far as ST Pulse and like ST ETH, yeah, I mean, it's a liquid staking token, so there's always going to be some risk associated. And maybe Van, you might have a different opinion, or
The deeper the liquidity, the better.
yeah.
That's cross finance today.
I agree. I think that the deeper the liquidity of SC Pulse has, the less volatile, as far as like the volatility between, or the less it would actually be able to depeg. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
I agree. That ultimately comes with just more users for the most part,
yeah, that's
bringing
true.
over more money. That's kind of how it works generally. Is the more money you bring over, the deeper the liquidity, the less volatile something becomes, which is just part of the game. However, there's also something to be said about money is made where the most the most volatility is and the least liquidity is.
Mm,
So there is a bit of a game. It's a risk game. However, in this particular case, the way that it seems to me is that there is a little bit of a safety net there, where technically speaking, you've staked up your pulse, and now you're getting a pulse. You might want to call it like a fake pulse. Is kind of how I want to do it, or like a mirror pulse, right? Because you put the pulse in, and then pop, you pull out another pulse, right? It's kind of the way I'm visualizing it.
hmm.
Um, However, the thing about that is, like, if this is like a ghost pulse over here, and you can mess around with it like it's a regular pulse. Well, the thing about that is, even if it depegs, you still got your pulse.
Yep.
That's the important thing. So people, I could see a place where people would get upset of like, hey, depegged, it's worth less than the pulse I already have, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay, but you still have your pulse. So why are you mad? This is just like free money
Yep.
at this point.
It's it's the whole premise. I mean, really, the whole premise of it all is you're still liquid. You, let's say an emergency pops up and you had to, normally if you were staked, you had to unstake it and do
Mhm.
all these extra things. It's like, no, like now, yeah, you get this. I love what you just said, the ghost post. I might have to get a shirt. But you have this ghost post that at the end of the day, you still are able to do things as long as there are some market for it that allow you to still be liquid, you know?
Absolutely. Okay, so how does Project Pi then ensure that liquid staking does not create systematic risks that could destabilize the entire Pulse Chain community?
Ooh, another good question. I think that it comes down to, again, even though we've been, we were on testnet for 10 months and we've got our smart contracts audited 4 times. And truthfully, I feel like once we finish our rounds, I would love to get another audit, even while on
Hmm.
mainnet. I think that audits, they're important, and I think that that will ensure more of a just a nice reassurance for people to see, like, hey, yeah, we're on mainnet, but we don't mind getting audited again, because at the end of the day, we at the end of the day, we want to make sure that everything's working properly. I mean, everything is, but I think that it also gives people more of a reassurance.
The
I
reassurance, I
know
think
it.
that's what you're talking about right there. The
I,
reassurance.
I know it's almost like I'm thinking of an analogy like when you with your girl and she's like, "Are you sure you love me? You sure you love me?" And it's like, "Yeah, I love you." Like, yeah, it's like the reassurance. It's like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if many projects do that, but the fact that we're considering even doing that, I mean, that in itself, I think that is it's a great thing, of course, but I think that you know, no matter what, smart contracts is always subject to some kind of risk, no matter what. But I think that bug bounties and constant just making sure everything's checked out and accounted for, that's going to also be helpful, and we
Yeah, I
want
would
that. We definitely want that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the bug bounties. That, as far as I've come to learn, bug bounties on any chain ultimately has been sort of the superpower, because I mean, obviously people want the money, right? And if you get a lot of these computer hacking nerds out there, they find themselves able to make more money easier if they go bug hunting rather than just straight up hacking people. Also, it's a little more moral to do so. And so people that do have those morals don't really want to go stealing. This is definitely an easy way for them to make
Hmm.
their money. So I do believe in that, and I think that is a wise way to go.
Hmm.
So, all right, then, what mechanisms exist to handle sudden mass redemptions of ST Pulse, and what happens if the protocol runs low on liquidity of Pulse?
Oh man, you are just going crazy with these amazing questions. Okay, so the first one you said, what's stopping anyone from the mass redemptions? That in itself is a good question. I think that there truly isn't. I know that, and I don't want to mention any of like the other like protocols that are also doing liquid staking on PulseChain. Our mechanism does allow for people, if they want to, they can redeem as long as there is a sufficient amount of liquidity. We don't necessarily have like a, let's say, 1 to 5 day waiting or lockup period.
Mhm.
And the reason being is, I think this, again, our systems are a little bit different. It's like oranges to tangerines to lemons. Like all of our systems are a little different. So with our system, we feel comfortable that if there, as long as there is enough pulse in the system, then yeah, you can make your redemption. And go from there. I think that eventually, I think that also we have to consider that mass redemptions, yeah, while in theory could be possible, I think that would be just based out of maybe like I don't know, something happened and it's just a pure just like fear fest. Like people are just so fearful of what happened on our protocol. But I think that people so far, in 1 month's time, have been pretty comfortable sitting on 5% on average APY. And I think that it's just going to continue to just do its thing. Um, Now, your second question, and it does, of course, relate to the first one.
Mhm.
Um, I think that, yes, again, it is kind of related to the first one. It's just like, I think that people, if they are very fearful of, let's say, something happening, then yeah, they will be wanting to redeem at any given time or moment. Is nothing truly stopping a person from, if they wanted to redeem, as long as there's enough pulse in the system. But I do think that, again, people are going to want to have their pulse working for them. And that is one of the beauties of single-sided staking. There's not many on Pulse Chain. So I think
Yeah.
that what we have would be a nice, it would definitely help to be beneficial for a person to really kind of consider, like, well, wait, if I unstake or if I redeem, then I'm not, my post is not earning or is not working for me while it's sitting in my wallet. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, it's as easy as simply put your pulse in, let that stake out the PPY 404 for you. Stake that NFT because 404s are an NFT. Stake out that NFT, which then yields you out the ST pulse, and then use that pulse to go stake somewhere else that you would be using your pulse to stake somewhere else, anyways,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, ultimately, the way that I kind of see that is it's one of the safer ways to ensure that you can not only keep your pulse, right? Sort of like the way the hex model was save you from yourself of selling hex by staking it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or later. And I guess you could say that you're kind of doing the same thing with pulse, where you're saving yourself from selling your pulse. But unlike Hex, which one of the issues with Hex, and this was last cycles, um, let's just say it's the ghosts of cycles past that people are very nervous of doing nowadays, is locking up and staking, right? Well, here's the thing: locking up your coins is actually important because, again, it saves you from yourself and rewards you down the road. However, the idea of oh, I'm gonna lock it up and then I'm gonna, like, say, miss a big pump or something, and then I'm just gonna round trip, that still hits hard for a lot of people and they don't want to do it. So how
Mm-hmm.
can you give people a little bit of security in that, hey, this is a good thing, it's going to help out the chain and all that, but also there's a way to help you as well. And that's kind of where this protocol comes in, because you're able to then stake the pulse, lock it away, right? Keep it away from yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
then what you're able to do is then pull out ultimately this ST pulse, which is going to be, again, it's a ghost pulse. And now you have your ghost versions, which is your safety net. And you can go around and go do what you're originally going to do with your pulse in the first place. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do think that this is absolutely vital, especially like liquid staking has been a narrative this cycle. And it's because people have been having such an issue with the locking up mechanisms of DeFi 1.0, 2.0, but last cycle, DeFi of last cycle, which ultimately
Yeah.
staking was the big deal. And a lot of people got kind of put through the ringer on that one, unfortunately. And Hexicans know this probably better than most.
No,
So
for sure.
yeah, yeah. All right. So How about this then? As PulseChain scales, validator requirements are going to increase, may increase a lot, especially with Project Pi making it so easy, right? So how does Project Pi ensure its model remains visible as network demands grows, or viable, sorry, as the network demand grows?
Yeah, no, that's a great question too. Man, we gotta talk more. Okay. So your questions are so good. I know that you have the let's say the upgrades like the Petra upgrade for Ethereum,
Yeah.
right? Where you may be able to bundle up your different or your validator requirements. So you're able to bundle up basically the 32 million polls to where you don't have to just do one validator per 32 million. It's like everything is bundled up into a nice package for easy validation with multiple amounts of staking requirements. And I feel like that as time progresses, mind you, again, we just launched, so I don't expect to like have any sudden changes. But
Go
I
to the
think
moon
that
right away.
right, I think that as time progresses, we would be able to and that's a beautiful thing about our protocol is we would be able to adapt to those changes of um, a person wanting to validate more than just one validator at a time. I think that
Mhm.
as we scale, that is going to be a requirement because at the end of the day, it, there's just going to be, I do feel like there will be more people that would be interested in validating, especially if you can do multiple validators at one point, at one time, and it's all bundled together. Um, but yeah, I think that as time progresses and as we scale up, we will be much more adapted or be able to adapt to, let's say, the Petra upgrade, or even before the Petra upgrade. I think that our system is pretty adaptable to be able to scale. It's just, how we built it out now. We wanted to make sure that, of course, everything works, but we wanted to also make sure that it was a sufficient system to basically for Van and I to manage. And I mean, once we start hiring people, as well as I'm not sure if you noticed that we also are dealing with AI agents, so we're adding an
Yeah.
AI agent aspect to it.
Brilliant,
Um,
by the way. That's important that you added that. I think it's vitally important, will be even more important come the future, because this is a brand new thing that's kind of
mhm.
being tested out. So, and I'm all for the AIs. I believe that that is the future. So, Anya.
So, it's like, even though we would have that, I mean, my opinion, I still want to have I still always believe in the human element. So we would
Yes.
eventually, we do want to hire people in the future once we actually are able to scale up. Because again, this is a massive protocol, and it still blows my mind that Van and I was able to do this shit. But we also realized that we want to hire a decent amount of people to help us with this. And I think that over time, that would help us be able to figure out how we could scale this to be, much more adaptable to any of the future upgrades that Pulse Chain has.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. So, could Project Pi staking model then reduce resilience on centralized staking services, preventing validator cartels from forming?
That's a great question. I think that what may end up happening, because again, there are emerging liquid staking protocols, not just ourselves. I think that that's going to help tremendously. I think that there's going to, like, as there are more emerging like protocols like ours that come out onto Pulse Chain, that in itself would help to make sure that no one can try to do any type of 51% attack or any type of malicious attack on the system.
Mhm.
I do think that it also would help to decentralize the protocol as a whole as well, because you're going to have more individuals that will be able to play. Where Van and I've heard plenty of times where people say, "Oh, I want to validate, but it's just too difficult for me." So
Yeah.
now, because it's a little bit easier, and it will continue to get easier. I think that this will definitely help to change the whole landscape of how decentralized pulse chain becomes.
One of the most important things that I've kind of seen coming in the future when it comes to pulse chain is the idea of large governments and or entities kind of taking over crypto, right?
Hmm.
And if you're looking currently at what's happening to Bitcoin, Bitcoin is always touted as the most decentralized thing on the planet, blah blah blah. And it is true that there's a lot of nodes all over the place, and you can't actually shut it down. But what do you do about something you can't shut down nor control? Well, here's what you do. You start building a fence around it, right? And so I've been saying since 2023 that the world governments and the largest entities are going to try and control Bitcoin by just building a fence around it and then letting it kind of go in its own little circle, right? And basically they'll do that by buying up as much Bitcoin as possible, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. So what's to stop these entities from taking over, say something like PulseChain like that? Well, here's my answer to that. All right. The thing is, no matter no matter what these governments, no matter what these entities that are so large, no matter what it is they do, the fact is they are too large, right? And people who are working on PulseChain, who are building on PulseChain to be able to become more decentralized and all that, even if these entities that are so large start digging their fingers into PulseChain, which would be cool because number go up. But even if they start doing that, there's going to be so much stuff that is preventing these entities from being able to take over. Instead of like one Bitcoin building fence, they're going to have like all of these other projects all over the place on this pulse chain network, this pulse chain city, where they're going to have to start building fences around multiple different places. And the fact is that these entities are just too big. They can't move fast enough. We move way faster. And my good friend Z over at the, or Z, sorry, Zenith over at the Degen Roundtable, he put it really well where he was talking about, because he used to be a Navy guy. He put it as like there's a giant freighter cannot turn very quickly at all. Whereas if you have like a little scout boat or even just like a little tugboat or something, you're able to turn on a dime, you know? So
Yeah.
you're able to escape these giant freighters that would be coming after you, or destroyers, or however boat, whatever boat you want to put in there. But you know, the point remains they're just too big to be able to keep up with something that's maybe a little bit smaller, more agile, but also I would say healthier overall for the crypto system and for the people at large, right?
Hmm.
And I do believe that this is part of the inception about creating so many decentralized just users, making it so easy to just start one up. It's not like you have to go out and spend thousands of dollars to start up a Bitcoin miner. Yay, there you go, now you're safe, right? No, you can just as easily just get onto your protocol, click a few buttons, buy into a bit of pulse, 16 million pulse minimum, and then slap it in there, and now there you go, you've already started one up. I
Yeah.
believe that this right here is just an inkling starting, right, of the brighter future, the long-term future of where things are going. So,
Hmm.
sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent there. But again, when I say lifeblood, I do believe that this is one of the more important projects actually on the chain itself. And this is why I want to make sure I do get this project out there into everyone's earworm, right? And giving you an earworm over here, getting into everyone's ear saying, hey, make sure you check this out. This is definitely something that's important.
No, for sure. I highly appreciate it. I think that, again, one of the things that Van and I, when we first like sat down to think about this, fun fact, we built this out when we were on the Pulse Chain cruise when they were doing their tour. We were on the cruise ship, and we spent, I think out of 7 days, we spent about 20-25 hours trying to build out the front end for this thing. So
That's great.
so that just shows like Van and I, we were already just really dedicated to trying to figure out a way to not only like get all this stuff to work, but just also knowing like what we what can we do to basically not only help ourselves but help the community and help the chain as a whole,
Hmm.
and not just saying that just to kiss ass or anything, but it's just saying like we again Van and I, we're class of 2017 as far as blockchain, so we've been in the game for a little minute, And I think that we both have seen just long, like we've just seen a lot of just stuff, you know? And
Mm.
I think that just the experience of what we both have and what we've done, I think that we have built something that definitely can benefit this chain.
For certain, for certain. Okay, so with that being said, in the event of overwhelming influx of new validators, how does Project Pi prevent the centralization from large-scale infrastructure players? And I do believe
Hmm.
we talked a little bit about that as far as the DAO goes, but this kind of goes just a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would think that as far as the full decentralization aspect, again, I think that there's always going to be individuals that will solo validate, and I
Mm,
think that this would, at least in my opinion, there are emerging liquid staking protocols besides ours that is going to help with that decentralization factor. I think that you also have to consider that no matter what, people are going to still want to keep full custody of their own validator. And so we
mhm.
do sell, we sell the physical nodes as well. That's what we started off as. But even besides us, I think that people are still going to want to solo validate by themselves, as well as even if they didn't want to validate, if they wanted to contribute to someone else that wanted to validate on our protocol, they could simply liquid stake. And I think that ultimately that in itself would help to mitigate some of that quote unquote fear of, well, maybe this could hurt the decentralization of the chain. I would disagree. I think that Pulse Chain already by itself, huh? No, 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 no. I got it. I think Pulse Chain by itself um, is fully, well, sufficiently decentralized in its own right. With the last time I checked, it was like 44,000 or 45,000 validators, um, and those are still running active, doing their thing. So I do believe that that's going to just continue to just be how it is because of the fact that Pulse Chain as an ethos, the whole ethos of Pulse Chain is decentralization, owning your own keys, being able to go on, PulseX or the Pulse Chain Explorer, and then being able to go via IPFS
Mhm.
and check everything off chain. There's still going to be a lot of validators that are going to not necessarily connect to our protocol, and that's fine. If anything, that's a good thing because at the end of the day, that is full decentralization. So we respect it. Not everyone's going to
Exactly.
do that.
Exactly. And, as we literally just got done discussing, the more validators generally means a stronger, more secure network. So, interesting little question here that kind of popped in my head. So, does Project Pi aim to eventually make staking the default choice for Pulse chain holders?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're biased, so yeah, of course we are going to say
Yeah.
yes. But no, for real, I think that um, I mean, put it this way. It's like if you have Pulse just sitting in your wallet and it's just you're only just considering the price appreciation of the asset. I mean, that's still fine and all, but wouldn't you want the price to appreciate on top of possibly being able to earn another 5 to 7% on a year on
Mhm.
year basis? I mean, that's what this protocol is intended for. You know, I like to give the analogy of like if you're going to, let's say you're going to Bank of America and you're depositing $100 into that bank, right? And you put it into the savings account and you're only getting maybe like 0.1% APY for the whole year, which is nothing, not even a penny, or just, yeah, not even a penny. You still have to have it in the bank for you to even be able to earn anything. But if you're
Mm.
able to get, let's say, 5% on that, and they give you a receipt to say, hey, this represents that $100 that you deposited into Bank of America, and it's also earning you 5% APY at the end of the year, you could still use it or come back to us. It's almost like a no-brainer. It's like, why would I not take the extra $5 and use it at a place that I know for sure that maybe they might, maybe they might accept it. If Target say, yeah, we'll accept ST Pulse, why not use ST Pulse at Target? You know, I think what's going to be really awesome, and this is, I won't say it's alpha, but I think it's the prelude to some things, is who's to say that there would not be off-ramp solutions that will offer to accept ST Pulse to be able to be used so that you can off-ramp your ST Pulse to fiat. That's a
Mhm.
possibility.
Yeah, that would be very interesting because then, technically speaking, you've never you've never technically exited your position on Pulse itself. You
Exactly.
Yeah, you've just pulled it out, and that'd be extremely helpful when it comes to, well, exiting into the bear, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different methods that I've been looking into about how you can do that, because the idea of just flat selling really hurts the price chart, and ultimately that price chart does hurt a lot of people. Because I mean, if you were to look at like Hex, when it went up and then it goes back down, a lot of people did get hurt from that. And I would say, just kind of in general, the bear market always feels like a lot of blood, right? Versus the euphoria and the happiness that is in the bear market or the bull market. So if we could figure out a way, and I do believe this is one of the biggest issues in crypto in general, is the booms and busts, where you simply buy into a coin, wait for it to go up, sell, knocks it down like that, and whoever doesn't sell fast enough ends up holding the bag and getting hurt from it. Because that's the biggest problem currently in crypto, I do think one of the most important things we need to figure out is how can we put these coins away to not hurt the price, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still be able to get the majority of that money, that value, still back out of it, so that way we all don't get hurt. And obviously, that's a very complicated question, maybe quite a few years off, but we're starting to get close. We're starting to get to places where you can do that. Liquid loans, earn protocol, flex. I mean, that right there, you could liquidate yourself technically, and that liquidation would still sit in those protocols, therefore not hurting the price of Pulse Hex or PulseX at all. Yet you've still pulled out the majority of the stables that you otherwise would have sold anyways. you know
Mm-hmm.
this is just another example of, like, you throw your Pulse to just stake forever in these vaults, ultimately, and then you can just pull out the ST Pulse, and from there, go get your stables off of there. Another example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are different examples of what could happen, and I do think it's something to look into. But for now, we're kind of where we're at right now. But I do think we are moving forward when it does come to sort of solving that biggest problem that crypto has currently.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, I mean that's something that, of course, Van and I we think about all the time because, like you said, I mean it is a big problem. I mean, but ultimately, I mean, there's always going to be buyers and sellers. I mean, it's inevitable. But I do think that as long as there are mechanisms in place that companies and people are thinking about that, they're building innovative solutions. I do believe that we have those type of solutions on Pulse Chain that can definitely mitigate a lot of that massive drop if people are selling, like you mentioned, like the base assets like Pulse and
Mhm.
PulseX and PHEX and so forth.
Exactly. Alrighty. So how about this one then? This is gonna be an interesting question here. So how does the increased staking yield, which is up to 45% APY for the validators, right, compare to Ethereum's or other proof of stakes chains? And does this make Pulse Chain more competitive?
Oh man, I like that. Okay, so yeah, one of the interesting things about our protocol is that because we have a two token system, I mean we basically took um, of course
Mhm.
inspiration of Rocket Pool and that type of protocol where they have RPL and I believe STETH, or is it
Mhm.
RETH? I think it's RETH, right?
STE,
Yeah. So
it's STE, I believe. Rocket Pool? No, Rocket Pool is RE.
yeah, so Rocket Pool, they have the RE, and then they also have the RPL token.
Mhm,
We
mhm.
basically like utilize that type of model. I think that it could definitely make it competitive because the 45% is the minimum.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the minimum on our protocol. The max is somewhere around like 100 something percent. and that's only because you're earning 2 tokens. And I think that once people really understand and realize, like, wow, I can earn 2 tokens, and I actually can earn, way more by doing something that is generally, I won't say a daunting. Well, I'm at the point now where I can do it with my eyes closed. But I know a lot of people never have done it, and it can be very frightening thing to do if you're not familiar with like computer systems and such. Um,
Mhm.
but I think that that's the reason why we have that 2 coin reward system, and the validators deserve to be rewarded in such a way. So I do believe that with something like that, it definitely would be competitive. I do believe that as time progresses, we all see this, we all know this. Anyone on ETH right now, they're going to want to move and migrate to different chains because the gas fees is too overwhelming. And I believe that PulseChain is setting itself up and being positioned to be one of those chains where it would be so natural for people to move from ETH just to go
Mm.
over to PulseChain directly. So then from there, it's like, well, if I was liquid staking on ETH and I come over to PulseChain and I see my options, I'm like, wow, I can earn a minimum 45% on PulseChain with Project Pi. Why not try it? So I feel like we are setting ourselves up to be not only a competitor to, again, a lot of these other chains, but I do think that if we go in just an ETH comparison, I do think that we would be competitive enough for the existing clients on ETH to want to come over to PulseChain and use our protocol.
Exactly. Actually, okay, so how about this one then? I am someone who's been staking out on ETH, and now I've heard about, Project Pi, and so I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna stake over on Project Pi instead. Now, can you walk me through what that would be like as a new person going from ETH over into Pulse Chain and kind of go into the details of the extras that I would end up receiving rather than being over on ETH?
Okay. So I think that one of the things, the first thing first is, of course, eat. I feel like, funny enough, you will be dealing more with the complexities of the eat gas first and foremost. And so I think that, that would be the first thing. It's like you have to deal with the eat gas. And then from there is, do I want to swap from, R eat, let's say R eat, you want to swap from R eat back to eat and then go to pulse and then try to liquid state, or see if there is a solution that will allow you to be able to go from re to pulse directly. And funny enough, I don't know, Van, do you know if any, I think pulse portal x swap, I don't know if that allows you to do that directly
Using a derivative to a derivative?
no well no, I know for sure not that, but I mean like
ETH
swapping
to
R,
Pulse?
let's say like RE the derivative to Pulse directly. I don't know if that actually exists right now. Um, I have to do some research when I get home, but that probably what might be one of the complexities is just trying to figure out like how to be able to effectively swap over to where you're not losing out on a lot of your capital from ETH to try to get yourself onboarded onto Pulse. I feel like once you get onto Pulse, everything would be self-explanatory. I mean, you're legitimately not having to deal with the daunting fees on from ETH.
Agreed, agreed. Yeah, and so, man, you bring up a really good question there because this has to deal with like the future of like how we're attracting Ethereum people over into Project Pi and Pulse Chain, uh, and ultimately people are going to look at, hey, I've got a few $100,000 worth of ETH over here that I'm staking out, and I'm gaining like 5% yield. And it's like, well, I mean, you technically could take that, go over to Pulse Chain, and you could do the exact same thing you're doing now, only you'll be receiving 45% yield instead, as well as you're going to be receiving 2 tokens. It's not just your R ETH, right? Which in this case would be the ST Pulse, but then you're also getting the PPY, which is also going to be worth something, and you could stake that out for more yielding as well.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a win-win overall, and I think it's a bit ridiculous that people would sit there with their ETH only on 5% and then realize that Pulse just performs better, right? And here's a
Yeah,
hoping. And then,
yeah.
yeah,
I think
not moving
I
over.
think. Sorry to cut you off. I think one of the things
Yep.
to kind of consider is the fact that it's not hitting. I don't think it's hitting the ETH guys just yet. And I think that one of
Mhm.
the things to kind of consider too is Pulse chain, as far as like, our blockchain that we're on, we have to reach a little bit more maturity. I think that once the
Yeah.
price appreciation starts to happen to where, because I think on ETH, one validator is like 100K versus on Pulse chain, it's about not even 2K. So I think that once Pulse chain has reached a little bit more maturity to where, let's say, validation is 10 times or 10x, think yeah, I think people will start to pay attention to validation from other chains to come over to our chain to mess with these type of protocols. Um, and that's just my opinion. Maybe Van has a different approach or opinion on that. But
Human psychology, I agree.
yeah, it's human
Mhm.
psychology. I think that as the price increases for Pulse Chain, that's when people are going to really want to like actually figure out, well, how can I maximize my yield? How can I maximize validation, even if I'm not, I started on ETH and I want to dip my toes in the water from, into Pulse Chain,
Agreed. So the reason why I asked that originally, though, is because this next question of mine really dips into this one real nice, or I should say, flows into it. So, could liquid staking make Pulse a more attractive asset for institutional investors,
Oh
similar to
man,
the ETH role in
I
the
l-
Ethereum
I
staking?
love that you asked that because funny enough, we're before we went to get some dinner, Van and I were talking about that because we were, we love to check out, other liquid staking based protocols, especially on different chains. We were talking about Jito and we were talking about Lido. If you're not familiar, anyone that's watching the stream, Jito is with Solana and Lido is the largest liquid staking protocol on Ethereum and in the world. And, you know, how institutions were able to even be able to consider like these type of protocols, I think that there are other factors, but I think one of the biggest things is just the cost of validating versus the max amount of APR or the yield generation that happens when an institution is validating. And I think that, and again, this is my opinion. I know someone might grill me on this. I don't think we're ready yet. Like, I don't think we're there just yet. I think the price of Pulse has to get up to a sufficient price for where a institution will really consider trying to, validate with a certain amount of capital to be able to really think about, making a nice amount of returns, unless they actually wanted to make like a really massive amount of validators. Let's say they wanted to do like an institution wanted to do, you know, 10,000 validators by themselves. Then yeah, I could see that. But you're talking about like institutions that they got into Lido and they probably could get like 100 validators or maybe like 200 or 1,000, for the max. It's like I think that Pulse Chain has to get up to a higher price to really be considered for that to happen.
Yeah, I do believe you're correct on that because it is interesting how the psychology of people is they prefer to buy into momentum swings, which the momentum swings tend to be up, right? So ultimately, what's going to happen is green candles are gonna appear, and it's going to be way beyond what you would call early. But yet, these people with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of ETH are going to be like, "Oh, what's that over there?" And then they're going to want to go place, swap over their ETH for Pulse, and then want to move in there as well.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the next one, I do got to say real quick that you are very dark in there.
Yeah, I'm
But
sorry. We we actually just got into my car, about to head home. So
yeah, we got your teeth are extremely shiny too, which is pretty entertaining to watch. Oh
yeah,
man.
but we just left the restaurant. Yeah, they actually closed on us, so we're about to head
Oh,
back. So yeah, but no,
yeah,
yeah, they closed at 9. So,
that's
but
not the first
no,
time we've ever had
definitely.
that happen to us, us Hexicans. That happened multiple times while we were out in New York. What didn't advance?
Yeah, no. So okay, educate me, because again, Van knows a little bit more, but I'm not like the most familiar when it comes to like the hex staking. I would definitely. I'm a little ignorant to that. And can you educate me on like how that works?
Yeah, ultimately, so when it comes to hex staking, all you really do is you throw it into a protocol. The protocol is immutable entirely, so it can't be changed. Nothing can be changed about it. It's a complete product. And once you put it in there, ultimately you burn your hex. And as long as you've burnt that hex, there's a calculator that calculates how long you burnt it for. And it calculates how much yield you're going to be getting based on how many people are holding it. But the nice thing about that is when anybody end stakes it, number one, that's ending it early, right? Number one, you're not going to be able to keep your yield that you originally had, right? Or your the amount of yield that you had up to that point. But the emergency end stake then takes that amount of yield and actually spreads it out to everybody else, all the other stakers. So when you get one of these whales that have, staked out millions of dollars worth of hex and they're like, screw this, I'm out of here, and they're just paper handed, they emergency unstake. Well, if you have a bunch of stakes yourself, you're actually happy about that because your yield then gets boosted up a percentage for a short amount of time based on how big and how much yield that person originally had. And then once you take it out, right, your stake is done, you've done all the days, then you remint all of that hex that you originally put in, the principal, and then the calculated amount of yield hex gets minted along with it. And so the staking ladder, the way that you usually want to do it is you take that extra amount of yielded hex, you pull that out to go, have fun with, sell, buy yachts and Lambos with, right? and then you put in that principal, or you put back in that principal. So long and short of it, that's basically what ends up happening. Now, you could go into like details about the T-share and all that, but that's more like, say, Crispy's extreme advanced ascending tech level type of show over here.
The
But ultimately, it is the
so
T-shares that,
yeah, because
yeah.
I've heard about that. So the T shares is like the next like component of that. How, you can give me like an elementary version of how that works. Is that like a secondary layer to Hex? Like how does that work?
So I actually, hilariously enough, because I was not too interested in the actual staking of hex, I was interested in other things. I'm a PulseChain boy. Okay, leave me alone. I never really dove too deeply into the T shares themselves, and I know Crispy is gonna yell at me for this one, but as far as I can tell, the T shares, it originally started as B shares because it was billions of shares, right? And for however much hex you actually put in, your receipt for the burnt hex actually goes in the amount of shares, right? And ultimately, you have this amount of number where it's like, I can't remember how it was, but it started off as a certain amount. You would get up to 1 trillion shares, and 1 trillion shares means that your receipt now gets higher yield. And so what ends up happening though is as you're pulling these out, those shares don't really get burnt, and so the shares only get more and more expensive as you're putting more hex in and then pulling more hex out. And so the T shares ultimately are just getting more and more expensive as they go, aka you need to buy more hex and able to put them in there. And I also know that it does have a factor to do with the amount of stakers in them as well. But like I said,
Ah,
I'm definitely not the expert when it comes to T shares. That is not exactly my realm. I'm more on the side of the pulse chain side of stuff.
no, for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some more research. I mean, all of it's fascinating. I think that was one of the things that, because I watched the highest of stakes, and
Mhm.
I had to learn a little, learn more about Richard Hart and like just everything when it comes to hex. And already, like when I saw the highest of stakes, I heard of like Richard Hart like back in 2020 and 2021, and I didn't really think not much of it. Not saying like any like no shade to like hexagons or anything like that. I just wasn't aware. Van was, so he
Yeah.
had to like teach me a little bit. But I'm definitely, I have a little P hex. I know now it's like an E-hex and P-hex situation. So now I'm on PulseChain. I'm like trying to get as many PulseChain based assets as well too.
Yeah, so little thing for me, I'm not a hex baby, right? So I'm a hexagon as far as like I really like what Richard Hart is doing, but I originally came into this space as a complete loser in the 21. So I'm the class of 21, and I just got dunked on really harshly. I really failed. I got out of crypto entirely for 2022, and I decided to give it one last try. And that's when I really put my nose to the grindstone, and I started learning as much as I could at the very end of 2022, and into 2023 was my real year of learning. And that's, as you know, that's when PulseChain came out, and I started learning about all the cool things that were on PulseChain. And I originally came from Phantom, right? So I was already kind of into like the whole money making side of things, as far as like money printers, things like that. So that's why I was interested to move over to PulseChain, and PulseChain was just a lot funner. You know, there's a lot more people around here who are pretty epic, pretty awesome. You just want to hang out with them. And the more and more that I started learning about all the different stuff in PulseChain, I actually legitimately, hilariously enough, forgot about Hex, right? And I was like, oh, staking, I don't care about that. And I started looking at all this other stuff. And the one that really caught my eye was Pulse X and the buy and burn. And that blew my mind, just going into that one, about how it's literally forever up. Not forever up meaning like, oh, you know, if somebody buys, you know, $100 million worth of Pulse X, it's going to stay there. Like, no, I mean, those are spikes, right? But if you look at, but if you were to like just let it sit there and nobody ever bought anything, or like say if somebody only put like $10 in at a time, it would literally forever climb up like this. And it's just absolutely fascinating that kind of value can be out there, and then how you can apply it to so many different types of projects. You know, the aliens are a perfect one for this. You know, the UFO, PTGC, they're absolutely fantastic when it came to that. It's just the technology started blowing my mind. Hence why I actually started this show, because this show I wanted to get so in depth with the technology of what's going on, because it just started blowing my mind. You know, all of 2024, I'm just all these new projects coming out, and I'm just like, whoa, how are you people so smart? So yeah, that's there we go. That's my story.
No, that's super cool. Yeah, you brought up PTGC and UFO. You know, I consider Coach like one of our mentors. You know, we talked to Coach a few times, and you know, just like, you know, really just like understanding like liquidity and whatnot, because their pools are deep. You know, and they did a great job with how they were able to structure and build UFO and PTGC. You know, and so I can say like I'm actually, huh? Yeah, hats off to them. You know, I love talking to them. You know, talk to Coach every once in a while. Cool dude. Yeah, I met him in Vegas last year.
Yeah, tell Van that after the show that we did next week, or the next week's show after that one was with Coach on those two, the aliens coins. So yeah, it's fascinating what they're doing. That inspired too the solid index with Fire Whale and Solid X, as well as the influencer coins. Nope, we got Randy Hlarski, Crispy with Fire, and then of course, you know, my man Axis with his Axis and Alive tokens. And they started experimenting around with an entire liquidity web, and they really started figuring out the secrets of that. Then you got Atropa, PDI, and they're fairly closely connected to the aliens coins, which is kind of interesting. The type of liquidities webs that are being built out on PulseChain, which, by the way, these liquidity webs are not they're not normal for other chains, and so it's going to be very interesting to see just what happens with them. And unfortunately, I do believe it'll mute tops that ultimately on other chains could like send coins higher. But the thing is that it also mutes the drops as well. And if there was some sort of way where, again, if there was some kind of way where we could pull out the stables, right, the profits, without having to actually sell the coins themselves, for anybody who doesn't know the technology or know how to exit correctly, if they did cheat out, then these liquidity webs would protect your value from your original coins themselves while you've already pulled out the massive amount of stables. And ultimately, for people who have been early in this game on PulseChain, it's such a win-win. It's actually unbelievable. the only thing we're waiting on is people to bring money in, and that's literally it. The rails are being built. Again, Project Pi is another one of those rails, one of those foundational set pieces, the lifeblood of PulseChain. It's just one of a few things that are just. I can't be more bullish on PulseChain. Frankly, it's quite insane, and we're just missing one thing: lots of money to come in.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But I truly believe that it will happen. Um, I truly believe that as time progresses, as Pulse Chain matures, I do believe that more money will come in. Eventually it's going to get to the point where, just kind of looking at directly at the source, Ethereum in itself is not going to be able to hold on if it continues at this way where it just can't scale because of the amount of gas needed.
Yeah,
The only other I mean, there are other options, but like I think directly one to one, people would be so much more comfortable just going directly to Pulse Chain. So I can definitely see that
exactly,
happening.
exactly, and that's kind of what I was looking at too. So I do have some more questions, unless you guys want to end it here. That's up to you guys if you're open to continue on.
Yeah, I mean, keep them coming.
Okay, all right, let's do it then. Okay, so how about this? How does the PPY collateralization mechanism ensure validators are incentivized to act in the network's best interest?
Yeah, okay. So we also made the PPY token first and foremost deflationary. So
Boom.
what I mean by that too is, if somebody, let's say, they did not keep up with their validator, and their validator end up being exit slashed, or it just wasn't running, we
Hmm.
would be able to track to see how much rewards that validator has earned. And if, let's say, for the reward period, let's say every 15 days on our for validators on our protocol, let's say they didn't earn any rewards, well, a little bit of PPY would actually be burned from their stake. It's not a lot. It's not like their whole amount. But if I had to give a number out of, like, if you had 100 PPY stake and you didn't earn any rewards in the 15 days as a validator, you probably might lose 2 or 3 PPY, which is not, again, it's not like a lot unless the price of PPY goes to, like, $5 or $10 or something crazy. But I do believe that that's going to be one of the ways to make sure that um, we keep things in check and keep things healthy, because at the end of the day, your sole responsibility with PPY and as a validator is to make sure that you're generating yield, not just for yourself, but for the protocol and for the liquid stakers. So you have to hold your deal to, of the bargain.
Agreed. And so if validators underperform then, or just completely fail to secure rewards, what happens to the slash PPY, and how does that impact the broader staking ecosystem?
They're burned forever,
Oh,
completely burned.
and that right
So
there, that's the deflationary model that you were talking about.
yeah, so that's what like basically every our reward cycles for PPY and ST Pulse differ. For ST Pulse is every 14 days. For PPY is every 28 days. And so for every 28 days, again, these numbers can be adjusted in the protocol DAO, but how I originally set it up is about 85% of the inflated rewards would be going directly to the rewards pool that will be contributing to the validators that will be earning PPY. 10% will be going to basically us, because I mean we have to eat, and then and then 5% gets burned. So let's say 1 million tokens are inflated each or every 28 days or every month, then 50,000 PPY would be burned away. Um, and that's just one burn aspect. That's like the main burn aspect. But yes, if a validator they're just not doing what they're supposed to do, and it's not earning any rewards for the system, then yeah, a little bit of their PPY is basically burned out of their stake, and it's burned forever. And that also helps to contribute to the deflationary effect. I'm sure you probably thought about this too, but if their max supply of our PPY token is 314 million, and if you need 100,000 PPY tokens to make an NFT, that only means that there's going to be 3,140 NFTs ever on our protocol. And 23 of them have been burned already. So they're going to just continue to keep burning away. And those NFTs, as we progress and we mature, we innovate, we keep things going, they're going to be very, very, very expensive, and they're going to have some crazy utility. Some things that Van and I we've been discussing as far as how we're going to, make all that happen. Uh, you know, so it's kind of a little mini alpha, but just like there's going to be a lot of extra
Mhm.
utility besides being able to earn fees generated from the protocol with those NFTs. So that's essentially how we see will be the best fit for a validator that isn't working the way it's supposed to. We feel that that will be the way to kind of keep things in shape and keep things in order.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay, so being the first liquid staking platform on PulseChain, how does Project Pi capitalize on its early mover advantage?
Okay, so no, first and I love to be transparent, and I love to, we're honest people. I would say technically we're the first ones on testnet. We're the second liquid staking protocol on PulseChain.
Oh,
But
okay.
yes, yeah. So, but I will say, while that doesn't deter or that doesn't take away from what we've done, I think that the what we have, again, like what I mentioned before, there are now three liquid staking protocols on Pulse Chain. But
Mm,
how I see it is, I think it's like lemons to tangerines to oranges. It's like
okay.
we
Okay.
all have our unique, different like aspects that I think that at the end of it all, people are now hearing about what we're doing, and I think that it still gives us a first mover's advantage because at the end of the day, we are the first ones when it comes to certain mechanisms that I think that people are going to pay attention to more in our documentation. Like,
Hmm.
they read through it and see, like, well, wait a minute. I've never heard of a liquid staking protocol ever do this. Like, you
Yeah.
know, the 404 implementation, that's a first in the world. That's something that has never happened before.
The AI
And I
implementation, same
and
thing.
the AI, yeah, the AI
Yep.
agent. We have a model that we're going to actually. My goal is to have it running as a demo for our community on our Telegram by Monday. So I'm going to be going home and working on it some more when I get home. But that, those type of things, I think that one of the beautiful things about us is we're still a startup. And startups are way different. I love the analogy of what you mentioned before about how, um, you know, certain things can't move as fast as others because of just how the mechanics work. It's like with startups, we're like a small boat, so we can pivot fast, we can move quickly.
Yeah.
Versus a larger company or business, they're anchored down. They're heavy. It takes forever for them to make a turn, and I think that is going to play into our into what we have. I think that's going to be beneficial for us to be able to figure out how we can really innovate and how we can really stand apart.
I agree with you. Yeah. So, how long ago did you come up with the idea of the AI agent? Because this is newer since the last time that me and Van talked. And so, what inspired this? But then also, how long ago did the inspiration come?
Yeah. So, are you gonna stay in the car? Okay, cool. So, Van and I, again, we built out the liquid staking protocol in about 10 and a half months. But I think about around maybe like the 8th month, I give it maybe like October or so. That's when we were like first implementing the ERC 404 PPY. And then we noticed that a lot of our, because again, we come from an incubator, an
Mhm.
actual physical incubator based in Atlanta. And there were a lot of individuals that were kind of starting to mess with AI agents and bots, basically. So we both sat down in a room, was just talking about different things, and was just like, that'd be crazy if we could like actually have an agent doing specific tasks related to liquid staking. And so, we both kind of sat on it and thought about it. And then I think eventually we were just like, let's just start doing some research. Let's just see what we can do. So I think around the mid, like, when did you guys first have that stream? That was November, right?
Yeah, I want to say Nate and I we streamed November, December, because I know we met in New York. That was October 31st. I remember that Halloween. So yeah, like November.
November.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that you all had your first stream in November. We actually already had like a very basic model. It wasn't nothing too crazy, but we were just kind of playing around, see what we could do. And then I think towards maybe like the middle of December, of course, we had to get our contracts audited and like really just focus on like the liquid staking because our main focus was, of course, getting onto mainnet. So then after we got onto mainnet, which was the end of December, we basically picked back up what we were doing with the agent, and we decided, well, let's let's just see what it can do. Let's see what we can do. So we first started with like I first started doing some research. I started building out like little agents that could do text to speech, and then I did one where it was two agents that could talk to each other.
That sounds fun.
So I still have, well, unfortunately, a few weeks ago, my whole desktop got wiped, so I don't know if I have that code
Oh,
anymore. But besides that, I still have a lot of my other code bases. But we ended up eventually getting to the point where we have an agent now that, and we showed this off on Twitter. It's like one of my last posts on Twitter, but it can deposit Pulse and it liquid stakes for you on your behalf. It can redeem the Pulse on your behalf. I also added in just today a feature where it can swap from PulseX on your behalf. So I
oh,
added that,
interesting.
as well as I also added in a feature where it can generate the validator keys for you as an agent on your behalf. So, I'm trying to like make sure I add things that will be one beneficial for us as a, liquid staking based company, but also not trying to make it, I didn't want to come into this to just try to have something that was like quote unquote gimmicky. I at least wanted to make something that was built with a purpose that I feel like people will want to use this. And I think, these type of features, as time progresses, so many things can be added to this agent, but I think that we're taking just a step-by-step approach that will definitely benefit plenty of users.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's so it's definitely unique, that's for sure. And I mean, this is kind of popping up a few questions in my head then because like there's a unique aspect to this. Okay. So Ethereum's liquid staking, like Lido and Rocket Pool, they have over 20 billion locked up, right? So do you think that Pulse Chain, as well as your protocol here, Project Pi, is able to kind of sort of halfway compete into that sort of money and replicate that type of success with this type of unique approach?
Me personally, I truly believe that, but I believe that it would take some more maturity of Pulse Chain. I
Agreed.
think that, again, we're talking about Pulse Chain, which is almost 2 years old, versus Ethereum, which is what, 10 years old now? Almost 10 years old as far as the summer. So it's like there's still a lot of money and value generation that I think has to happen with Pulse Chain for it to really get up to those 100, 200 plus $1 billion in TVL. And then I think that from there, then you will have other liquid staking protocols like ours that would
Yeah.
be able to compete in that manner when it comes to the TVL. So I truly believe it's possible, but I do believe it's going to take time. I don't see this as something that's like, happening. I mean, anything is possible, but I personally don't see it happening like within the year or so. I think that this is going to take a gradual, progression of time.
I would agree with that. But also, it is something to understand that the fact that you're saying like, oh, it's going to take like maybe 2-3 cycles before we actually hit those kinds of numbers, or maybe even just next cycle it hit those kinds of numbers. The fact still remains that you are fucking early, people. You
Mm-hmm.
get it? And one of the number one games in crypto is getting early. Now there is the difference though between getting early and like say a meme coin that you can cheat in within 8 minutes, Baron Trump coin, and grabbing a coin for the next cycle, frankly. And then next thing you know, you've been holding. Originally, you bought 1,000 Ethereum for $100, but you just kind of held that for 2 cycles, and now that 1,000 Ethereum is worth like 3 million and something. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but traditionally over in the stock market, you would have to do at least 30 years, and you would have to put in $100,000. Well, maybe not that, but like $10,000 every single year, and then you would have just barely enough to scrape by, maybe, right? And at this point, when it comes to crypto, even in this sort of situation, if you were to compare that to something that's early, such as like say Project Pi right here, where you literally just you get into something, you're just holding through it. It's for the longer term. A lot of people think of like goes up, sell it, goes down, yay, I've sold. No, in this particular case, you can go ahead and hold that, and you keep the same amount of coins that you've got. And in keeping the same amount of coins, your literal dollar amounts are just going to go up and up and up, and can go up by quite a bit. So that amount of percentage based on the dollar amount that's in there is actually going to be quite insane. And you've basically built yourself up a money printer that's going to retire you, and that retirement only took you anywhere from like a 10th to maybe a 20th the amount of years it would have taken you with the traditional risky way to do it, which is in stocks. So, I mean, even that approach alone, I want people to think about like really what does crypto actually do for you, right?
Mm.
And it's definitely something that people need to have stuck in their minds of like the idea of jeeting out in one cycle, or even like even months, like over in Solana Jeet land, when you've got, wow, I've held a world record over here at 3 months holding. Yeah, that's amazing, right? No, that's not really truly what retires you. Only 1% will actually get 1% of the 1%, actually, if you actually do the statistics, are going to end up with that life-changing amount. And even then you've dumped and you've harmed 99.9% of everybody else who put their money in as well. And so you're something of a criminal at that point. Okay, digging too deep into that, my bad. But yeah, so with my little tangent, right? Let's go. What lessons can PulseChain be learned from Ethereum's liquid staking landscape? And how does Project Pi differentiate itself? Well, I think we've kind of already talked about that a little bit, being the AI agents.
Well, I would say a little bit more. Well, I think what differentiates us from the liquid staking protocols in Ethereum is not just the AI agents. Again, we're also an infrastructure company, so we can provide the hardware, whether that's physical or the cloud. Also, we do the education, so we go to universities, and we have partnership with like Coinbase's Stanford Crypto Initiative, to where they actually fly us out to DC, where we talk to government officials, educating them on, again, not just with university, like people actually signing and putting in laws, the importance of blockchain technology, because it's the technology that's important. Because and this is just my opinion, I feel like crypto is just a small percentage or slither of the actual technology itself.
Mhm.
But we also talk about the importance of infrastructure, because we're an infrastructure company as well. And guess what? We could tell them about PulseChain. So as again, I think there's a lot of things, and I'm not saying that they're not doing like the educational piece, but knowing like what I know, like Lido, they outsourced and utilize a company to do their physical devices, which is fine. But for us, I kind of think of us like, I should tell people like, you know, Project Pi is like two different companies, like an AWS or like a GCP infrastructure company, and then like maybe like some type of software. But really, how I kind of see it is it's kind of like, I would say we're more like apples, right? Because we're not just building the software, but the hardware, like an ecosystem where like you have
Yeah.
your laptops, your iPhones, your watches, and you can have different gadgets and different things. So that's how I feel like how we're scaling and building the company, and that makes us different. Not just a DeFi protocol, but an actual legitimate company, to where you have hardware and software coupled with an ecosystem that makes it easy to onboard people, not just on PulseChain, but crypto as a whole, because again, we are an infrastructure company.
Mhm. I agree. So, could Project Pi's model then be exported to other chains? And do you plan on doing it, or are you thinking this is just going to be uniquely tailored to just PulseChain's staking mechanisms?
Yeah, again, I mean, I feel like it's going full circle. You know, when Chris and I first started with just hardware, we, sold different types of nodes, full nodes, validator nodes, archive nodes, secret nodes to different chains. And then, doing RPCs. But now that we have the software on it and we started multi-chain, and then hyper focus on PulseChain first, because again, it is a very, you know, big protocol. We have to understand the workings, the mechanics of how everything works. So then, yes, to answer your question, we can scale, do multi-chain, do different
Mm,
things, scale out, and then, again, bring back where we built from, which is back to the pulse chain community and the chain itself.
excellent. Okay, so in 3 to 5 years, where does Project Pi see itself in the PulseChain's ecosystem?
A unicorn company, a unicorn,
Yeah.
in eyes is like at least $1 billion in TVL. In the traditional world, to be a unicorn company or having, a market cap or an evaluation of $1 billion, that takes about 10 to 15 years. If
Mm,
in 3 to 5 years we did that, I mean, we did it in half the time, which again, that's just the power of one, decentralization, two, the technology itself. Me being a computer scientist, when I was an undergrad, it was very overwhelming because computer science is really just a glorified math degree, but it's so broad, right? People are, oh, software engineer, or data engineer, project man. Like at the end of the day, when I found about the actual technology, I was like, I don't care what I'm doing in tech. I just want to work with the technology.
mhm,
So
mhm.
that's what I started working the Fortune 500. But yeah, man, that's just yeah.
Yeah, that is epic. Okay, so what future innovations then, like say perhaps cross-chain staking, slashing insurance, maybe a validator, reputation scoring,
We got a lot. Chris had that minutes and laugh, so maybe he can talk about that.
answer this one.
Yeah.
Okay, you
It's
plan
funny
on
you mentioned
introducing me,
the
maybe.
cross chain staking. That's actually something I always have brought up with Van. It's again kind of just going back. I always just think
Mhm,
like I think in the future people wouldn't even they wouldn't even care what chain that they're truly using as long as that they can get the yield. Kind of going
yeah.
back to like the hot and cold water pipe situation. It's like unless you're a plumber, you don't really kind of care what pipes you got as long as you can get hot water to take your shower, right? So I do believe that the interoperable piece is going to play a big role in that. And I think that what we have going on, I think that the agent, who's to say our agent wouldn't be able to facilitate that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Alrighty. So now you were talking about education. I kind of want to actually flip over that direction because
Mm.
it does kind of fascinate me. Now you were talking about how you were going around to different colleges, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to a college, first off, how do you present yourself? How do you even get in that position to go make a speech at a college? But then number two, what is it that you talk about to people, and how do you make crypto decentralization and ultimately Pulse Chain attractive to the students that are there?
You want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you on a perspective from my perspective, because when you said it, kind of hit it home. How do you position yourself in order to do this? We
Mhm.
built in the bear market, right? There was no shiny object, there's no Trump coin, there's no Pepe. Well, during the time Pepe did happen, but we were just building the whole time, not just building our company, but building our relationships, building the partnerships, building in real time, showing other people, hey, this is what we're doing, keeping them updated. And if they were ever interested, or as we progressed in building our company, going from Raspberry Pis to mini PCs, Intel and AMD CPUs to now full blown validators to now actually DeFi protocol, as our company evolved, more partnerships started to make sense to the point where, again, with the interoperability, it won't just be on chain, meaning on blockchain. It's going to be off chain, meaning on actually B2B, utilizing Web2 company. Because again, we are
Mm,
an infrastructure company, so that we can do the deep in play with that, and then just bringing more value to PPY, ST Pulse, and again, just the chain at large. So again, to answer your first question, because that's what really got my attention, was just building in the bear market. Just hyper focus, keep building. There's gonna be a lot of no's. You just keep going. Don't give up. If you have a vision, cool. Show if you have product market fit. How did we do that? We presented it in front of the PulseChain community. They liked it. They invited us to the PulseChain tour. We then, all right, cool. Within a week, we built out the tokenomics. We built out the MVP of what you see today of the liquid staking protocol. And then we did our 90-day campaign. So that was December. So 2 months later, like, okay, hey, look, we got it working. Would you like it built out? We didn't do a sacrifice, but instead what we did is like, okay, if you would like it built out, you can stake on our protocol. And as you're staking, you're going to be getting our PPY token for free. So it's a pre-seed offering. So by doing that, it showed product market fit. So yes, build
Mm.
in the bear market and show that you have product market fit, and to just stay consistent. Just keep building. And that's how you get yourself in a position to do one of those things, as in to going to universities. But that's just how I want to answer it. I kind of give Chris his perspective.
Yeah, for my perspective, I see it as again, I agree with what Van said, like 1 billion+%. When we first started, again, we recently both just graduated from our college, Georgia State University. And we still had a lot of networks and connections with not only that college, but a few other colleges in Atlanta that we basically we know that there's emerging graduates that want to be immersed in this technology.
Mm.
So we figured, okay, well, I think the best thing would be to see how we can actually figure out how we can actually get into these colleges to be able to teach. And Van and I, we've already taught at Georgia Tech, we've taught at Georgia State, we went out to Alabama to teach at Stillman College, where it is actually pretty sad. Only one person out of like what 30, 40 people knew about Bitcoin. That's it. And
What? Come on.
yes, and it just made me think like, wow, while we're very early and understand just the mechanics of pulse chain and all this stuff, here we are with this perspective of knowing that only one person knows about Bitcoin.
Yeah, and that kind of happened to me. I'm an undergrad,
Yeah.
me studying computer science. I guess I don't want to say I was ignorant, but I did a survey. It was 80 students. It was during my data mining class. And I literally asked them, hey, like, who's heard of blockchain technology? I think only like 2 people raised their hand out of 80. And then I was like,
Oh.
okay, who's heard of Bitcoin? So, okay, we got about like 10 people. But like, even then, these are the future. I'm like, you guys haven't heard about blockchain technology or Bitcoin? Like, what's going on? And then like the stuff we were learning were just so old school, using PHP and like Visual Basic. I'm like, guys, what is going on? So like I wasn't even paying attention in school. I was just more or less I actually funny enough, I was at the blockchain club at my university. And then the president who created it actually ended up graduating, and then I became the president. And yeah, I mean, I was talking to all the different universities. I went to different, like, I was just so immersed in blockchain technology. Like, I was, look, you know how like people say, like, yo, I'm a ETH maxi or I'm a Hexagon or a Bitcoin
Yeah.
maxi?
Yeah.
I was a blockchain maximalist. I was like, tokenize everything. When I was going on
Yeah.
that rap home, like, everything needs to be tokenized. Obviously, now that I've matured and I understand I'm building, it's like everything doesn't need to be tokenized. It can be, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. But yeah, again, it's just keep grinding, like, and just utilize your connections. You never really know, to have communication. Like I literally just all I talk about is crypto and blockchain. I even teach it to my kids so they know, oh, that's the crypto guy you need to talk to. So like now even we're getting deals come to us because like all the networks, all the random people meet at gas stations are presenting and all that other stuff. They refer other people to us. And guess what we do? Onboard on the post chain. So I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely agree. One of the most important things I think people really don't understand is that when you hit a point where there's like 100 people in a room and only one person knows about Bitcoin, there is clearly an information gap there. And if you have an information gap, that's a very clear sign of just how early you are at something, right? And this is what you look for when you want to get into something to make a ton of money. Ultimately, in crypto, we already know we're early just in crypto in general. Even if you're going into Bitcoin now, you're still a little bit early. But now that institutions, governments are getting into it, that's a sign of, well, yeah, okay, maybe it's not as early as you would hope for anymore. However, that information gap that you guys are talking about right there is absolutely vital to understand. And the fact that PulseChain is sitting on this level right now, where people, I mean, a lot of people have heard of us, a lot of crypto people, but they still haven't really touched us. Whereas a lot of people on the outside haven't heard of us at all, right? And
Right.
so you know just how early you are. And because the volume, we said this a lot earlier, right? But because the volume is so high, like one of the top 5, sitting in top 10, top 5, all the time as far as volumes go, you know that there's something special here, and we're stupidly undervalued. This is something that you absolutely are going to want to be getting into anyways. So yeah, I do have just simply one more question here, and I think we'll close it out if it sounds good to you guys.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, my phone's about to die, so it's perfect timing on both our ends.
Perfect. All right, so this one's been I've been kind of itching at this one ever since talking about the colleges. So, what partnerships and/or collaborations are being pursued to expand the community engagement and/or get more, engagement as far as like institutions go and/or different colleges?
Oh man, that is a great question. I mean, if you've been following our journey since day one or looking at our social media, we always announce our partnerships.
Mm,
If you go on our actual website, projectpi.xyz, and scroll down, you can see our partnerships. But yeah, our partnerships are great. That what we have, some of them being like Georgia State University, where Chris and I have both graduated, where we taught, and even I'm going to be soon having our infrastructure there, so where students can actually utilize this technology, understand what a node is, understand the importance of it, and again, even onboard these young adults onto the ecosystem. Um, going through the OVH Cloud startup acceleration. They're a cloud providing company very similar to AWS and GCP. They were graciously enough to give us cloud credits. So, early on as we're building, we're a very lean startup. Again, we were bootstrapped, so we need we had to bootstrap everything. And as an infrastructure company, that's where most of your cost goes. But as we were building in testnet, I feel like we were also able to scale quickly. It's because we had the infrastructure available to do so. So I think that's one great pivotal partnership that was great. Pre-search, actually one of the very first partnerships we got with Chris's online presence that he's built over the years. He actually utilized and tapped it in. He tapped in with Project Pi when we started building it. And Colin Pape, he used to be the CEO of Pre-search. Pre-search is a decentralized search engine like Google.
mm,
And we partnered with them within 2 weeks of actually launching the company. As we were doing our pre-sale, we were actually pre-selling the pre-search nodes. So we are actually the global node distributor for pre-search, which is amazing. 2 weeks in, you can go to the documentation and go to buy pre-bear and you see us. Partnerships with, I think, which is great, which Coinbase's Standard Crypto Initiative that we talked about earlier. Man, so many crypto lids, no bits DAO. The
love
list
it.
goes on, man, and it's just like any of these partnerships we have, Blockchain Legal Institute. I mean, I could just keep going on and on and on. But for us, now that we're mature and building, the partnerships that we're going to have that helped us catapult and grow to where we are today, going forward, the partnership we have just has to make sense, right? We don't want to just, of course, we would love to partner with everyone, but at the end of the day, we're a business, we're trying to scale, we're trying to grow. So we are definitely keeping our eyes open, always being open-minded. Doesn't matter if the company is big, doesn't matter if the company is also a startup like us. If we feel like the partnership would make sense and we can grow together to again talk about what we talked about earlier, it just makes sense, partnering with people to where we can make our PPY token our world war asset, for example. That could be something, many things like that. But yeah, when it comes to partnerships, I think that's about it. You got anything to say on that, Chris? Or
Yeah, I mean, you covered all the bases. I mean, it really is just like, at the end of the day, the partnerships, I think for us, they're gonna come. I think that when it comes to like, just envisioning like institutional grade, I think that it's going to come down to figuring out how we can actually be able to, leverage what we're doing to some of these partners or some of the people, funny enough, that we're currently in talks with right now that we see like we really do believe that if we make this all happen, then yeah, I feel like Pulse Chain would end up becoming an institutional grade, and I see it being possible, and I don't see why it would not be able to be able, able to do it. If uh, we talk about this, a few times, that the volume is just really high on the chain.
Mhm.
That's a perfect recipe for an as or a blockchain in itself to become institutional grade.
Exactly.
I feel like it's just going to come down to just the more the maturity over time, but. Um, and not maturity as far as like like some of the companies, or like just like some of the sentiment that's like on like social media, but I think it's more so just like the actual growth of different blockchain businesses that actually are being developed and built on the chain. That's all.
Absolutely. And I think that this project is going to be going places, to be certain. It's one of the better ones. I've said it once before. I'll say it again. It is the lifeblood of PulseChain. So with that being said, guys, I am very happy that you joined me here today, talking about the launch of Project Pi, the lifeblood of PulseChain, for sure, for sure. And yeah, it's definitely for sure. I'm going to put in the links over here. Follow Project Pi on their link tree. All of their links are right there. Go ahead, get into it. I do believe that this is vitally important. This is something that with with all the extra stuff you're adding on here, I did say at the beginning, I'm not really considering validating myself. However, in this particular case, with the kind of this extra stuff that you've put on, maybe I will. Maybe I'll actually put some of my pulse in there, because I do believe that it is important. However, we could scrape up 16 million pulse, so maybe I'll just pull some out of a couple of other farms I got. So with that being said, guys, again, thank you very much for joining me on today's Ascending Tech. And with that being said, maybe I should just ask you, do you have any final words before I take us out?
Nate, thank you for bringing us on stream always. Again, we will be in Vegas, so anyone who wants to meet in person, we'll definitely love to talk. If you are good at golf, we are looking for some team members. Get a chance to win 30K in prizes. And maybe with those prizes, you can set up some validators. But no, all jokes aside, again, thank you so much for the support, guys. You can follow us on all social media at projectpi.314. If you would like to follow me, I'm likewise Van on all social media platforms. And thank you, Nate, for having us on to tell people what we're doing and what we're building on bullshit.
Absolutely, absolutely love what it is that you're doing. I think it's amazing. So, with that being said, guys, make sure you pull out that magic pen, tap the like button, and make sure you subscribe, pressing the belly button and all, and so you never miss an episode. I appreciate you guys very much. Love you very much. Remember to ascend every single day. This has been Ascending Tech, and as of currently, the way that things are standing, well, it's time to head out. Love y'all.